Honkai Star Rail is a free-to-play turn-based RPG from Hoyoverse, the same developers of Genshin Impact and Honkai Impact 3rd. Honkai Star Rail is the fourth installment of the Honkai series, however set in a different universe with alternate versions of the same characters, so new players to the Honkai series can still play Honkai Star Rail without knowing all the previous Honkai lore. So without further ado, let's get into Honkai Star Rail world building. In Honkai Impact 3rd, we have Hershers, and in Genshin, we have Archons. And so for Honkai Star Rail, we have Aeons. In Honkai Star Rail, there are 14 total Aeons. Aeons are the final manifestation or evolution of a concept or idea. These are beings or forms who are embodiments of their respected concept or values. Aeons ascended from the existence of intelligent beings. Upon ascending to Aeonhood, that being gains power over the paths, free to choose the allocation of imaginary energy however they wish, while suffering the restrictions of the primum mobile, which basically means that they have a philosophical concept that they cannot stray from. Aeons are so powerful they're nearly invincible. Over the centuries, many Aeons have had conflict with each other, bringing chaos and disaster to the surrounding worlds. However, Aeons can only operate according to their primum mobile. For example, we won't have to worry about the harmony stirring up a storm. The birth of an Aeon gave rise to a path. The nature of the paths remains a mystery, leaving us to draw an analogy in a way that mortals can understand. It's a philosophical concept of sorts. Each Aeon corresponds to a path, which are ideas or beliefs and values of that Aeon. Paths are manifestations of imaginary energy, with which the ideals harmonize and align with an Aeon. According to Welt, paths are described as philosophical concepts and are part of the imaginary element, the metaphysical aggregation of the spirit. When specific conditions are met, an intelligent being will completely take over this part of the imaginary. These intelligent beings are called Aeons, and the energy they possess is called paths. Aeons are free to use their path's energy however they please, but are also bound by it. A person is considered to be on a path when their will overlaps with that path. If the person has a strong enough will, they can draw power from that path. Those who can do are called Pathstriders. Pathstriders possess extraordinary power, but are still insignificant compared to the Aeons, like a drop of water in a vast ocean. Sometimes Aeons will bestow a mortal with their power, making them an emanator of that Aeon. With each path and Aeon comes its faction, or followers, almost like a cult or religion. These factions represent the roads human beings chose out of faith and benefit. These factions are communities of people that have aligned themselves with a certain Aeon and path. Some factions stick to the true will and values of their paths, while others take the ideas and values to an extreme and manipulate the meaning of the path to benefit their own selfish desires. Many Aeons are untouchable, but the factions are close to us. After Akavili trailblazed across the galaxy, people became aware of the existence of other worlds. Over time, more people started to try to use the power of the Aeons to travel between worlds. Paths are an important part of the gameplay mechanics as well. The playable characters in Honkai Star Rail are all on their own paths, which correspond to the Aeon they associate with. For combat purposes, you can think of the paths as the character's class or role. For example, the Aeon Yaoshi resides over the path of abundance. Characters who follow the path of abundance will play the role or class of healer. There are 14 total paths and Aeons, but only 7 are known right now. To get a good feel of the beginning classes, beginning at the start of the Honkai Star Rail, here's the first 7 paths and Aeons we'll be hearing about at the beginning of the game. Feel free to skip this if you don't need to know the details of the different character classes. And a side note, the main character, or Trailblazer, is able to change the path they are on, much like the Traveler from Genshin Impact. The 7 we know of will be the ones you play first, and are as follows. The Path of Destruction and Aeon Nanook. Characters with this DPS role are going to be the front attacker and can DPS alone without help. Known characters on this path are Arlen, Blade, Clara, and Hook. The Path of the Hunt and Aeon Lun. Characters of the hunt have high single target damage, making them great use in blitz battles or boss fights. Known characters on this path are Danheng, Sile, Susheng, and Yangqing. The Path of Erudition and the Aeon Nos. Characters in this DPS role have exceptional multi-target AoE damage, making them amazing DPS supports with crowd control that can make quick work of mobs. Known characters on this path are Herda, Himiko, Jingyuan, Jingqiu, and Serval. The Path of Harmony and the Aeon Shipi. I'm probably pronouncing that wrong, so I apologize. Characters with this path are great supports that buff allies to boost the team's overall damage. Known characters on this path are Asta, Bronya, and Tingyun. The Path of Nihility in Aeon 9. These characters debuff enemies to give your team a big advantage in battle. Known characters on this path are Kafka, Pela, Sampo, Silverwolf, and Welt. The Path of Preservation in the Aeon Qlipoth. Characters on this path will act as your tank or shield, having excellent defensive capabilities. Known characters on this path are Fu Xuan, Japard, and March 7th. And finally, the Path of Abundance and the Aeon Yaoshi. As I mentioned earlier, the characters on this path play the role of healers, making them essential team members for long battles. Known characters on this path are Bailu, Lucha, and Natasha. Honkai Star Rail is set in a different universe than that of Honkai Impact 3rd, and explores the concept of space travel to other worlds in this universe. By no means do you need to know anything about Honkai Impact 3rd to understand the story of Honkai Star Rail. However, Hoyo did what they do best and sprinkled lots of Easter eggs and callbacks to the previous games in Honkai Star Rail, which is always a nice element to see across the Honkai series. So, Himiko tells us that no one knows the true nature of the universe, but provided us with the most popular theory proposed by the first member of the Genius Society. The Cosmo Tree Theory, proposed by the Emanator of Erudition, and compared the galaxy to an enormous imaginary tree, with its leaves being individual star systems. Therefore, only Aeons who draw their energy from the imaginary and Emanators, who are blessed by the Aeons, can travel through the spaces filled with imaginary energy. That's why planets where civilizations exist are so similar. Sound familiar to anyone? Himiko also tells us about other theories, though not as popular, including the stretching theory, the heat torch theory, and the parallel imaging theory. The Riddlers claim the galaxy is just a dream, and Nine's followers seem to like that claim. Honkai Star Rail starts by introducing you to the Astral Express, a spacefaring locomotive that navigates using the Star Rail, both created by Akivelli, the Aeon of the Trailblaze. Akivelli's intent was to search the universe for the end of the Tree of Existence, but his plan was cut short with the rise of the Stellarons, and this ultimately led to Akivelli's death. Before Akivelli's demise, the Trailblaze faction called the Nameless used the Astral Express to set up a star rail connecting the worlds it traveled to, setting up for future planetary junctions for easier communication and exploration between worlds. However, with the rise of the Stellarons, or Cancer of all worlds, the blight created by this unknown power started to affect the Astral Express and the Star Rail too, eventually putting it out of commission and stored away until a very young and ambitious Himiko stumbled upon this legendary relic. The Express is traveling on a route that the Trailblazer once embarked on. The names of some destinations have been lost, but the first and final stops were both at Picana, Akivelli's homeworld. We speculate the Astral Express started its journey from Pagana, stopping at each destination along the way before returning there for its next journey. However, the appearance of the Stellarons has caused a delay at each stop. Even after the death of the Aeon, the followers of Akivelli continued to pursue the Trailblaze will. Himiko, with her aspiration to explore the galaxy, restored the Astral Express to its current state. Now in the present, the Astral Express is presided by the Path of the Trailblaze, or the Nameless, following the values of Akivelli. The goal is to re-establish the Star Rail to once connected worlds, exploring unknown worlds, establish relations with other civilizations, and to connect the Star Rail throughout the universe, all in hopes to help combat the plague that is Stellarons. Stellarons have caused the destruction of many planets and civilizations, and appropriately called the cancer of all worlds. It's similar to the Abyss from Genshin, making it a strong attraction for organizations who want to use this power for their own benefit, much like the Fatui or Abyss Order. Welk calls them Seeds of Disaster, appropriately named after the Aeon Nanook planted them on different planets to cause destruction. Stellarons are substantial forces of energy that cause massive damage and bring ruin to wherever they reside, but they can also cause warps in space called fragmentums. We don't know much about them, but we do know they can be implanted in certain people with a high tolerance to its energy, as we see with the MC. Similar to Valkyries or Herschers from Honkai, or Vision Holders and Traveler from Genshin. Another weird and intriguing feature of Stellarons is that they seem to be able to talk to people telepathically. After learning about the Astral Express and the Stellaron that was implanted into your body, we make our first Star Rail stop at Yarillo VI. Nearly a millennia ago, this once lush green planet was plagued by a Stellaron and subjected to an eternal freeze. Ironic, since the word Yarillo comes from the mythological god of spring and plants, Yarillo. Because of the fragmentum created by the Stellaron, along with destruction and eternal freeze, Yarillo VI's civilization was forced into a small area as sanctuary for the surviving inhabitants, called Belobog. In present day, Belobog is split between the underworld and the overworld. The overworld being ran by government officials known as architects, and the Supreme Guardian. At one time, the overworld and the underworld worked together to keep the fragmentum at bay, with the underworld's mining and the overworld's supplies. However, the fragmentum corrosion worsened over time, leading the Supreme Guardian to shut off the pathway and communication between the two, and leaving the inhabitants of the underworld to fend for themselves. The underworld runs without government rule, but instead relies on the protection of Wildfire, a self-defense organization that works to keep law and order in the underworld while also trying to seek a way out of it. Our next stop on the Astral Express is Xianzhou Luofu. The Xianzhou Luofu is one of the 6 flagships of the Xianzhou Alliance. It sails in the endless ocean of stars like a one-way arrow, shooting toward the Lord of the Hunt's destined enemy. The Xianzhou Luofu is essentially a giant port in the middle of space, with its original purpose to build ships, sail across the stars in search of medicine of immortality. Now, this giant city in the stars is a hub of communication and trade, with a steady inflow of people from different planets and cultures coming to Xianzhou for trade, medical treatments, and studies. Not only is Xianzhou known for its trading port and technology, but it's home to the hustling, bustling streets filled with people of all walks of life. Very similar to Liyue Harbor, Xianzhou is a big, busy city full of people working hard and playing even harder. Trailblazers can also enjoy entertainment and munchies while visiting Xianzhou. Well, Trailblazers, welcome to a vast universe full of mysteries and dangers. Click the link in the description below to pre-register for Honkai Star Rail. And don't forget to like this video and subscribe to my channel for more Star Rail videos like this. If you want a more in-depth information on the gameplay mechanics and combat, be sure to check out my other videos. I also stream on Twitch every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. I'll leave my link in the description below, so come join us for some Honkai shenanigans. That's all for me today. Once again, I am Ufi, and thank you so much for watching.